You did it. You made it back to another Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague with Playful Humans. Find me, Mike Montague, on LinkedIn or Instagram, all kinds of good stuff there, and playfulhumans.com. The website is pretty easy to remember. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with somebody that you think needs to hear it, because my guest this week is Laura Haber. She's a play advocate and doing all kinds of things. Author, the new book, Play Together, available now. You can go to laurahaber.com. She's also a speaker, life coach. She wrote a song once too, just for fun. We're going to find out more about that and how she's playing for a living. Here we go.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Keep chasing the sunshine. Go right
One more move. All right, Laura, we like to start with the joke of the week here on the Playful Humans podcast. The joke of the week is brought to you by bamboo. Bamboo is the scariest plant. Bam! Boo. Okay.
I love it.
What's
I love
the
that
difference
one.
between a man wearing pajamas on a bicycle and a guy wearing a tuxedo on a unicycle?
Remind me.
A tire.
I knew it.
Do you have a joke for us?
All right, here's my joke. Do you want to hear two short jokes and a long joke?
Oh, yes.
Joke, joke, joke.
I love it. Such a great way to start the podcast. Get us in the right mood. Now, let's start with the book. It's available. I know that launching a book is an interesting thing because I feel like everybody thinks it's the finish line. Like, your book got published, it came out, but that's actually the starting line of a whole bunch of other work of like actually getting anybody to buy it or read it. So as we sit here today, how do you feel about the new book?
Oh, thanks. It's, I laugh when you are saying that because I actually have a community called Author Moms. And we talk about this all the time, because some authors are like, oh, I'm into the writing and I love the writing. And then it hits the publication. You think, I did it. And then you're like, wait, what? There's like something else to do. Luckily for me, I have a background in marketing as well. So I really enjoy both the creative writing side as well as the sharing the message and, getting it out there. So luckily those both fall under the umbrella of play for me, which is useful and, spreading the word of the power of play, which is what you do so beautifully in this podcast. And it's so fun to listen and hear all the different guests and the different ways they incorporate play into their work, into their lives.
Let's talk more about the book, because these are games and activities for the whole family. No screens involved. They're designed to boost creativity, connection, mindfulness, and bring a family together. So how did you land on this? And tell me more about playing together as a family.
Yeah, so I was actually writing a different book at the time, and everyone remembers the pandemic and when the pandemic hit. And I remember feeling like really, it was a crazy time period. Everyone knows that, but feeling really drawn to help families stuck at home and kind of using my background in coaching and working with kids and happiness and well-being, mindfulness, all these things. And literally, I just started posting a game a day with my two boys. We made up a game and we would post it. I don't know what we were doing. People were like, what are all these games you're posting, Laura? And I was like, I don't know. I was just led to do this. We write the story challenge. Like, it's up to us to write the story of how we approach our life and, how we're being about. Like, we can't change what happens to us, but we can like adjust our own reaction to it. Right. So I was just started this and, it just took on a life of its own and it turned into this book. It, got a publishing deal and it's just right here on my desk. It's just like, it's still that new book phase where it's just so fun to see it.
It's got that new book smell when you flip through the pages. That's awesome.
Yeah, and like it has all like I got to work with an illustrator and an amazing team, and just bringing it to life. And now that it's actually out there, I'm hearing stories from people on how they're like, using it and how a lot of times it's like screen time is over and they're like, well, what should we do? And they really I love hearing it. Like, they love that they have all the materials at home. It's fun for kids of all ages. It's fun for, people are playing it with their grown parents, like that are taking care of their elderly parents and teachers. And I don't know, it's like even so much fun to hear these stories of how the games are impacting people's lives. And it's such an honor. really.
Well, I all of that is awesome. Congratulations. And there's a lot of good lessons to unpack in there already. I love that you said you were kind of just following the improv of life, following what makes you and your sons happy, and it turns into something. Because I think that I hear that so much on this podcast with
Mhm.
people that get to play for a living. They're like, well, I found something I like doing, so I just kept doing it. And eventually I got so good at it, people wanted to pay me money for it, or they were asking for more advice, and I found a way to monetize it or something. Not that that has to be the end goal for any of it either, because my second question for you was to really loop back on play. I think for people like you and I, it sounds obvious why families need to play together, and there's a friendship recession and a loneliness
Mhm.
pandemic, and kids are having more screen time and less social time and all kinds of other restrictions and things that I think sound fairly obvious. But since you're hearing all of these cool stories, what do you feel like really the power of playing together is? And explain some of those benefits that you've seen.
Yeah, well, the benefits, I could go on about it for the entire podcast, so I'll just try to summarize the benefits. I'm sure you guys have talked about it lots of times before, but one I think that is particularly useful right now, especially in this, like, as we're moving, through this pandemic time, is the rise of stress and anxiety, and the power of play to diffuse that and to bond you together. And it affects your energy levels, your connection, your kids. You want your kids to be able to come to you and talk to you, and just being there with them, sitting on the floor with them and playing these silly games, showing them that you care, right? It's this beautiful connection,
Mm.
exchange of love, so you can decrease your overall stress and anxiety for yourself and your kids. You strengthen your relationships, you improve your one-on-one back and forth communication, right? As it's like, well, should we do it this way or that way? And then suddenly it's like, well, okay, I don't want to play anymore. So then what do we do, right, to keep everybody in part of the game? That's a way that you improve your creativity and your innovation. And I could go on and on about it, you know.
Well, let me highlight one of those that's in the subtitle of your book is the mindfulness part. And I just finished another big Lego project back here with the Pac-Man Lego. But I find that for me, mindfulness is part of it. Just kind of being in the present moment, focused on a task with my hands, like not distracted by screens or technology or updates or likes popping up or alerts and other things ding. Like it's just, I'll put on some music,
Mhm.
do a little build, and enjoy my life, uninterrupted for however long that
Yeah.
lasts. But tell me more about the mindfulness part of
Yeah,
these activities.
mindfulness in my studies and happiness studies, I've been studying this for decades now, and I'm like a research nerd, so I love digging into the research on it. But I found for myself that when I started to practice daily meditation and mindfulness practices, the quality of my life went from it just skyrocketed. It skyrocketed. And so now it's just one of my missions is to teach these lessons to kids, but to do it through play. Back when I was a tennis coach, I had the experience of, working with kids. I've coached tennis and competed for many, many years. And I found that kids learn so much faster when they're playing, right? And so I know the importance of these mindfulness skills. So to create fun new ways to teach them these skills in a way in which they're not learning or like practicing mindfulness, they're
Yeah.
just playing a game and they want to keep coming back for more. That's why it was important to me. And I have a whole section of games, a category of games dedicated just to mindfulness alone, because the importance of breathing and like you said, Mike, like getting present, slowing down. We're in such a hurry in life to get somewhere, and that's where we've got it wrong. Like we think that doing all these things and being productive and all this is going to make us happy, but the research doesn't show that, right? It shows that we've got it wrong. We have a lot of these miswantings, things that we go after that we think will make us happy. But if we can build these mindfulness tools, if we can be present, we can practice our five senses, we can get in the moment and we can make it fun, right? So one of the games is 3, 2, 1 freeze. And how you play is you can be dancing like kind of we did in the opening, right? You can do a dance party, you can be walking, you can be running around with your kids. And then whoever's it will yell freeze. And then they'll say sight, right? So if you and I want to play it, I'd say sight. And then what would you say? Like you'd have to know something that you see.
Oh, yeah, rug or whatever you got on the
Yeah,
wall
it's like
back there.
tapestry,
Yeah,
right?
I love it.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
whatever. I forgot what it's called, wall hanging. But yes, okay. So I'm going to see a cool Lego creations, right? So then we would go around, everyone would share it, and then we'd go back to running, dancing, and then the next person would yell freeze, and we would say smell, or, we go through the senses. But that's a way to practice being grounded in the moment, noticing the things, getting back into our bodies out of our ever thinking minds, right? Slowing down, entering that more flow state. So,
I
there's
love that you shared doing that through play, because I think so many even adults miss that we can go to the gym and work out and we can lift heavy things and we can stretch and we can do yoga and all that stuff, or we could play dodgeball for an hour and we're going to bend, we're going to squat, we're going to jump down, we're going to be doing burpees, we're going to be throwing, we're going to be getting our heart rate up and working on our cardio, and we're going to be burning calories and getting all kinds of good things, the exact same movements, but way more fun. One's work and one's play. So I think people think play is the opposite of work sometimes. And for me, it's like the fun uncle of work. It's you're doing the same things, you're just doing it with a completely different mindset, which makes it more fun.
Yeah, and I like to define play as an invitation to do something for yourself for the pure joy of it, and that play is a pathway to leading a vibrant and fulfilling life. And I wanted to make sure to clarify that, because I feel like a lot of people think of play as like, oh, it's good for kids and whatever, but it really is an invitation, especially for us adults, because if we don't take the time to play, we don't make as much time to play for our kids, then our kids miss out on these powerful skills. And if I can just make it fun, part of play, like, is like you just want to do it. It's self-motivating. It's not even motivating. It's just you want to do it. You're drawn to it. It's magnetizing, So teaching these things and practicing them in a fun way, especially exercise. I could talk about that one for a long time too.
Yeah, and I do want to circle back to that, because you slipped in the tennis, and I want to ask you about playing for a living and moving
Yeah.
from a player to a coach and stuff. But I had one more follow-up question on these games, which I think is fun. I try to ask when I have toy experts on the podcast and stuff, like what makes a good toy. And for somebody that put together 60 games, I feel like some of them are probably more fun than others, or you probably tried more than 60 and you whittled it down to 60 that were actually good. So in your opinion, what makes a game fun and easier to be in that playful state versus one that doesn't really work, or it becomes too competitive and it'll kind of spiral out of control? It either doesn't take off or it has too much launch momentum
Mhm.
and builds too much energy.
I think finding simplicity in the game is always useful, especially when you're working with young kids. If there's too many rules, I've ever sat down to play a board game and it's like you have to like watch a whole video or read an entire booklet on the rules. Maybe the game is great, but right, like the games in my book, at least, they take like there's a low barrier to entry, which I think is
Yeah.
useful in our busy society. It's like if you finally have time to play, you want to kind of hop into it. But and also making it like in terms of making it simple, right? Like having the materials, like you don't need a ton of materials, doesn't take a ton of cleanup and prep. It's easy to do and you want to do it. And also a lot of people are different too. And that's where what I recommend in my games and in everything is make it your own. Right. Like a lot of times in the games, I would say, like, especially early on, right? Because we are posting these every day. We didn't, like you said, we didn't use every game we created. We created more games, but we also had to make it fit into the book, right, with my publisher. But um, make the game your own. Like I would think, oh, we're going to do this for the game. And then I think that the kids are just going to want to do that. And then I'd be like, well, you should do that. Like, that's what we're doing, right? Like this one game is 3D paper bouquets, or I don't remember the name we finally finished on, but you'd make like 3D bouquet out of paper, and I was like, oh, we're going to do these beautiful calla lilies. And, like I had looked it up on Pinterest. This was early on in the challenge. And so I'm the only one that finished that. Like my older son made this cool 3D bouquet his own. And then my younger son, he just made like a picture of him hugging his grandma. And at first I was like, that's not even flowers. But then I laughed because I realized this is just for fun and connection. And that's beautifully inside of the mission to connect, right? Because part of the
Yeah.
games were to connect with other people. And so here's some flowers and here's a hug, and like being open to the magic that can arrive in play and not being so closed-minded, right? Like having the growth.
I think it's so funny. You see parents doing that all the time. And even I do it with my little nieces. We're, playing soccer in the backyard and stuff. And I try to make a fun bit out of it, but they'll pick up the ball and just start throwing it and be like, girls, we're playing soccer now. That means we use our feet, right? But what I'm saying is like the rules of the game are more important than the joy in your heart right now, 4-year-old. So put the ball down and let's be serious. And you're like, no, we didn't come out here to be serious. We came out here to play around.
Yeah,
And so why are we worried about the rules? It's so
right.
funny.
Which is the loose part play, right? Into like this, like the terms of the terminology of it is creating a game with just random materials. So that's a game I don't have in this one. I'm thinking about it for the follow-up is just go everybody as a scavenger hunt, go grab a bunch of material. Let's bring it back into the kitchen in 5 minutes. And then what game can we create with it? Because then it's complete creativity. It's complete
Yeah.
communication skill. Like, well, I don't know. How are we going to make it's impromptu? It's like, how are we going to make like a stick and a cup and all these random things? Like, how can we make that into a game? And just leaning into our kids' creativity, saying yes to them, right? Yes, anding their ideas and giving them their confidence and just being open to learning from their childhood wonder and being back in touch with that ourselves as adults.
Yeah, so many good things to unpack in there. But as you mentioned, just I think the improv and the creativity skills of just not, worrying about whether it works or it doesn't work, or if it works for 5 minutes, great. If it works for 50 minutes, that's cool too. But just letting it be what it is such a tough thing in today's world. Everybody wants to monetize it or have it fit within the time box, or like you said, not make a mess and all kinds of things. And
I was guilty
um,
of that a lot and night too.
yeah,
Don't make it like there's a mud kitchen game, and I was seriously like, or catching bugs. I did that with one of my collaborators. I'm like, ooh, I don't really want to go digging in the dirt and pulling all these bugs, but like doing new things together is also really important to you, especially as adults. Like when you're kids, you do a lot of new things, but that's where the power of play really comes in handy as adults when we try new things. And sometimes they might be like, what? But then now you have a funny story, right? Like my husband and I tried to go snorkeling one day out in the La Jolla Cove, and it was so choppy, and we were boning up and down. It was sort of cloudy in the water, and afterwards, I kind of even felt a little ill, even though I've done this a lot. And now we just kind of laugh about it, right? Like even if in the
yeah.
moment, like now I'm like, oh, remember that time we tried to go snorkeling? And
I think about that with messes all the time. I've had other family members and stuff like, well, you can't do that because that's going to make a mess. And I go, yeah, I know. Like that's what makes it fun. And then we can clean up the mess later. Like I'm an adult. I know I'm not just gonna, do things, and
yeah,
I'm not here to like ruin carpets or anything. Like we'll figure it out. But if it's outside in a playful state and stuff, we can make a mess. We can break the rules and we can see what happens. That's how you learn to experiment and grow, and you learn what works and what doesn't work. But sometimes it's more fun, like you said, when it doesn't work. And then you're like, oh, well, that blew up. And that was way more interesting than what we thought we were going to do when we set out to do it. And that's what I love about being in a playful state in any of these games.
yeah. And then
Any other final thoughts from the book here?
oh, well,
Before
I was going to circle back to the workouts, but yeah, for the book, it's just schedule some time. Even if you just do 5 minutes a day where you turn off your phone or you put your notifications off, you get down on the floor, or you do something that you love, right? Like if you loved playing, Legos when you were a kid, go get some Legos and play Legos with your kids or do whatever it is. And, also if they like something, try something new they like, and, reciprocate that they're going to try something with you. And, just be open to the power that it will have in your relationship,
I love that. Now, again, the book is Play Together. Go to laurahaver.com. You can find it there and reach out to Laura and all the good stuff she's doing there. Speaker, life coach, all kinds of other things. If you need a speaker for your event, go check out laurahaver.com. And here's my next question for you is the playful career. So you mentioned playing tennis and getting pretty good at that and getting to do it a lot. I have a ton of questions, and I'll just let you pick whichever one is most interesting for you. Whenever I hear about it, like a professional athlete, I go, did it ever stop becoming a game, and did it start becoming work for you? And whenever I hear somebody move from player to coach, I think that's also an interesting life change. Like, did you have the joy of the game come back, or did it change in trying to get somebody else to enjoy the game rather than you getting to enjoy it yourself? Tell me about those two experiences. And
good question. So I started teaching tennis even when I was in high school. So I led like a local neighborhood program. So I grew up kind of coaching and playing
Nice.
simultaneously. Um, and then I played in college. I played for Ohio State, and we were a strong team. We were Big Ten champions, all this stuff. And I'll
Nice.
tell you the truth. Toward the end of my college career, it did lose a bit of the play, like the pressure of showing up and competing at the top levels of NCAA. It started to show up, and it was affecting my performance. It was like, suddenly it's like you go to hit your backhand and you like can feel the tension, right? And
Yeah,
so
you're like, don't mess up.
reconnecting
This is
to
the championship.
play.
Don't mess up.
Right, right. And that's where this like beautiful mindfulness piece comes in now. We did have sports psychologists that we were working with, but the level of information that we know now versus then is super amazing. And so to be able to put that hand in hand with yourself as a performer, as an athlete or whatever you're performing, a musician, any type of performance, it can make a huge difference for you. But I loved coaching. I just find it so fun to find playful ways to teach this stuff to kids. I used to even travel around the US to take kids to high level tournaments and national tournaments and just sort of hang out and in the life lessons that you learn through sports. It's kind of like a theme of my life, right? It's like learning through play
Yeah.
and making it and finding ways to enjoy your life and connect and follow your own passion and follow your own spark. Like what's whispering to you, and then being able to play professional beach tennis years later and just doing this whole new thing. It's like you said, when you're following the playful path, these cool opportunities can show up.
Yeah, I wanted to dive more into that and ask you about your career here. So, did you ever end up with like an office cubicle job and then kind of break your way out and find your way to do it, or was always sort of that playful path and finding your way
Yeah.
with
I
whatever
did
kind
I
of came
did
up?
have I never had a cubicle, but I did have a career in internet marketing and like web. I worked for a digital marketing agency. I was one of the third employee of this company that continued to grow and grow. And
Nice.
where I loved the creativity and I loved it. At some point, I realized this is not for me. My body literally told me this is not for you, Laura. Like I like lost my voice, and it was like, this is not right, even though you feel like, right, this is one of those areas where everyone says, okay, I got my master's degree. Now I should get a real job. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll get a real job, quote unquote. And I did it. And then again, like I said, my body said no. And I ended up quitting that job and going back into full time coaching. And it was amazing. And that's when the opportunity to compete on the Pro Beach Tennis World Tour showed up. And I wouldn't have been able, well, actually, I think I started competing at the end of my old job. But then I think it was just part of the transformation, right? It's like
Yeah.
follow the
When
play.
did you find the play research and the whole industry of being a play advocate?
Yeah, so that started probably around the same time that I was in like starting to compete as a beach tennis athlete, or maybe slightly after. I was writing a book on happiness and, using games, surprise, surprise. It just was my natural
Mhm.
expression, games to live a happy life. And that's when I dove into the beginning to dive in that play research. So it was back in like early 2000s.
Wow, that's awesome.
I know.
Really.
I'm getting old. Oh my gosh.
No, I'm just surprised because I don't think a lot of people really found it that early. I've been a playful person and entertaining and all kinds of other jobs, creative professions and stuff too. I did internet marketing and
Yeah.
advertising and graphic design, web design, and then podcasts and radio and internet radio and
Oh my gosh,
all kinds of things.
I had an internet radio show, right? Because that's what it used to be called before
Yeah.
podcasts, right? I'm like, I had a beach tennis internet radio like show that we did. So fun.
It's awesome.
So fun.
I am so mad. I had a show that it got up to like 30,000 listeners a
Yeah.
month. And this was back in like the 2000s as well, like 2007. If I had just kept that show going, I could have been like Joe Rogan by now. But I sold off that station. I didn't want to, it was getting expensive. I didn't want
Yeah.
to, worry about advertisers and stuff.
Well,
But
now you can have playful
who knew?
humans and all this amazing things. So it's just like following the
Yeah,
path, right? Like
that's true. That's
walking
true.
the path. Like we wouldn't be here chatting, possibly sharing with you wonderful people. Like who knows what everyone's up to right now. I know I love listening to podcasts while I'm like running or walking or washing dishes. So it's just so fun to just pop into people's lives and, share the power of play.
I love it. Laura Haver, the book, Play Together at laurahaver.com. Now, speaking of playing together, are you ready to play a game?
Yes, I am. And I like how I got you to play. Really?
I know we did get to play. Okay. You got Survey Says pretty easy. We surveyed 100 people. The top answers are on the card here. If you get 2 out of 3 on the card, I will consider that a win. Name a job that requires more nerve than you have.
Tightrope walker.
Ooh, I'm going to say it's not on there. Skydiving instructor would be the closest, but doctor, surgeon, construction, pilot, firefighter, military on the top ones. But good guess. I like that.
That's a big job. A lot of people are tightrope walkers, so you got to represent them.
Name something people do in their cars while stopped at a red light.
Check their phones.
That's what people do all of the time. Yes. Number 2 answer there. Adjust the radio. Number 1, sing, look in the mirror, look at the people in the cars next to you, eat or apply makeup, which I guess would also be in the mirror. Okay. Last one. It all comes down to this, Laura. You get this one, you win. If not, we're going to call it a loss. Name a kind of place where people pretend to be paying attention. Where do you pretend to be paying attention?
At the office.
The office. Yes. Number 3 answered there. Number 1, school. Number 2, church. You really should pay more attention there. Movies. I don't know why you would pretend to pay attention. Concert or sporting event. So nicely done. You win a free 30-second commercial here for whatever you want to promote. Is there anything that we can do to help you or you can do to help us?
All right. Well, yeah, like we already spoke about my book. I'm really excited about that. Anyone can find it on, bookstores all over online or my website. And I don't know, I guess the best thing I would want to promote, it would just be inviting everyone listening to go out on a limb and try something fun for themselves and invite a friend or even invite someone that you think might want to do it with you that you're not so close to, right? Like start that line, that ripple effect of play and, let's just share that. Like, that's part of my global play movement is to just have some fun and share like what a difference it makes as opposed to just sitting at home and, thinking of things you might want to do. Just let's try it. Let's get out there.
I love that you mentioned acquaintance because I've been trying to do that a lot more this year. And somebody that I met at like a networking function for business like 10 years ago is on Wheel of Fortune tomorrow night. And they're having a watch party at B-Dubs. And I thought, I haven't seen this person in like 10 years, but I might just show up. I might go to Buffalo Wild Wings and watch them on Wheel of Fortune and just like support somebody else's play and stuff because why not? What's the downside of that? I think it's a super fun thing. And I think reaching out to people that you bring good energy to your life that, or you might bring good energy to their life and they need to get out of the house and do something. Such a great mission and call to send people to do. So thanks again, Laura Haver. Website, laurahaver.com. The book is Play Together. 60 games and activities for the whole family to boost creativity, connection, and mindfulness. Until next time, share this episode with somebody that you think needs to hear it. Leave us a comment. You can go take the playfulness quiz at playfulhumans.com, or you could figure out whatever you're doing this weekend and see how you can +1. Go have more fun with it. We'll see you next time.
Live for today. Keep on chasing the sunshine.